Welcome to the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity, which is all about all things mental health for parents, for men, for women, for seniors, for neurodivergent, for those who have lost loved ones, people in their lives, for those who've experienced trauma, for those in the workplace. We are going to talk all things mental health, all things life. So join us each week and come along our journey with us. Welcome to our first Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity. Today's going to be all about me and just some questions that I've been asked about my journey and into being a psychotherapist and doing a podcast and that sort of thing. So I thought for my first podcast, I'd let all of you get to know me a little bit. So the first question that I'm asked a lot is, why did you start the podcast? And that is a question that I've been asking myself as I've been preparing for this because it is a bit nerve-wracking. But when I went back to school in my 40s to change or expand my career and become a psychotherapist, in my internship, my supervisor at the time said to me, "You really need to learn the art of half-assing it." And I still haven't learned that art. And so when I get an idea, it turns into 10. And I had this little idea about expanding my website and creating workshops that people can do self-directed online. And then the idea turned into, well, I should probably do some social media so that people can see who we are and what we do and maybe direct people to the website. And then one day my social media gal, Lily, had we have a shared spreadsheet, and I saw a little podcast with a question mark in the corner. And now I'm doing a podcast. So right away I was like, that sounds fun, let's try it. And then we came up with some ideas, and we have a whole bunch of ideas and guests to bring on. And so that's kind of why it started. And then, to dig a little deeper, I have a lot of knowledge. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've helped a lot of people, and I want to be able to share that. And I want to bring other people in because I'm a strong believer that we never stop learning. It doesn't matter how old we are. And I learn from my clients every single session. It doesn't matter how many degrees I have, what paperwork or letters beside my name. I learn from these people's experience every single session. So I think that I would learn from my guests as well. And I want to teach all of you. I want to expand your knowledge. I'm also a firm believer that knowledge is power. And if you can learn about things, 1, maybe we'll end the stigma of mental health. 2, maybe you'll understand yourself or others in your life better. Whatever it may be, that is why I started this podcast. All right, so moving on. The next question I have been asked is, I've been telling clients and friends and family that I'm going to do a podcast. First thing I hear is, "Oh, that's so cool." And then the question is, what is the podcast going to be about? And I want it to be eclectic. I don't want it to be, this is anxiety and this is what it looks like. I want it to be about real life things. And yes, anxiety is a real life thing. That's a given. And so it will be about anxiety too, and different types of anxiety. I want it to focus on psychotherapy, but mental health as a whole. I want to bring, guests in to talk about menopause and perimenopause and how it impacts our mental health. I want to bring some of the other therapists in and talk about childhood anxiety and how parents can help their children. Maybe teachers looking at it can help kids in their class. It's going to be about some fun things too. And, I think that therapy and pop culture and how the media portrays it, sometimes I laugh when I watch a movie because it's so not like that. And so I want it to be about everything. I want it to hit so many different people. ADHD is a huge thing right now. We're seeing a lot of it. We're having a lot of requests to dive into it a little bit. One thing that a lot of people don't know that I did recognize and work through in my previous career in education as a behaviorist and a counselor was the difference how it presents in females and males. And in females it often presents as anxiety and assessments and that sort of thing don't always address that part of it. So I want to really dive into that in our podcast. I want people to understand why they are the way they are. Our next podcast, or not our next one, in a couple of weeks, is going to be about all the messages that we receive as a child and how it impacts our narrative, creates our narrative going into adulthood, our core beliefs. So I think that our podcast is about a lot of stuff. I may throw in some sports in there, and how, mental health in sports, kids, and the impact that some parents can have on them in sports, athletes, that sort of thing. I'm starting a sports psychology program to help athletes. I want to incorporate some of that into it. I love sports. I'm all about sports. It's the only TV I watch. And so, and I go to games all the time of different sports. So that's what the podcast is going to be about, and that's what I tell everyone. I don't know fully because we're going to evolve and we're going to change and we're going to see how things progress and tweak some things. But for right now, that's what the podcast is going to be about. The next question that I often get is, what are your hopes with this podcast? Lily thinks that my hope should be that I'm going to be the next podcast sensation. And that's a great dream. And that would be fabulous. But right now, my hope, I don't see myself being the next podcast sensation, but my hope is to reach as many people as we can. My hope is to educate as many people as we can while we're entertaining them too. While they're making dinner and they're driving in their car, they're hearing my voice, our voices, and they're learning. I want to help other people, which I guess is my primary goal. That's what I do. I'm in a helping profession. I help people. And I want to help people. And I want to, like I said, reach as many people, but broaden, my grasp on helping people outside the community that I live in. So that's another hope that I have. The more people, the better. There is a story, an analogy. And I actually gave all of my staff, all of my therapists and my admin staff, a starfish keychain and a little card last year. And there's a story about a young man who was standing beside the ocean when the tide was out and the tide was coming in. And this old man was walking down the beach, and he saw this young man throwing starfish. And there was hundreds of them on the beach, and he was throwing starfish back into the ocean. And the old man said, "You're never going to save all of those starfish. What are you doing?" And he picked up one starfish and he threw it in the ocean and he said, "I just saved that one." And so it was a reminder to my staff that, we need to help one person at a time. And if you make a difference in one person's life, you made a difference in one person's life. My goal, my hopes of this podcast is to take each individual starfish and make it a collection. I want to help as many people as I can. I want to give independence to people. I want you to learn from these and some of the videos that I'm doing on social media so that you can have that independence and you can say, oh yeah, that's something that I can incorporate into my life. Or, oh yeah, my therapist had talked to me about that before and I needed that refresher. I want to create that independence. Obviously, being a psychotherapist, I'm not saying that my podcast is going to replace therapy. It's not. Some people need to have individual or couples or family or group therapy. This is added to that. This is an addition. And as I had noted before, I'm creating some online workshops. And so getting to know what I do and how I approach things might lead people to the online workshops. So that's another hope that I have, because that is another expansion. That's another way that I can reach as many people as I can that might not feel comfortable coming to therapy. Maybe maybe that will kickstart them coming to therapy, or maybe that'll just help them. It's still therapeutic in its way because it will be cognitive behavior therapy programs, which is most of what I do. Okay, now we're kind of getting into the personal stuff now. I mean, podcast is personal, but a question that I hear often, and it's often around a comment: I don't know how you do what you do. I hear that on the daily. Or I could never do what you do. And not everyone can do this. This isn't for everyone. So the question that I get is, what made you decide to become a psychotherapist? And it's been quite a journey. When I was little, both of my aunts were nurses. And my grandmother always said she wanted to be a nurse, but they didn't have the means to put her through it. And so when I was little, I was like, I am going to be a nurse. And I grew up, I'm a Gen Xer, so I grew up in a time where most little girls dreamed of being a nurse or a teacher. And I had a dream to be both of them. And then when I was 12 years old, I had to do a project on a career. And we had to do a shadow, and I wanted to shadow a nurse. And my friend's mom worked at CHEO. And so we went to, her mom brought us both to CHEO, Children's Hospital, Eastern Ontario, in Ottawa. And we went into the psych unit of it, the psychology unit. And right away, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. I wanted to be a child psychologist. Back then, in the 80s, we didn't have psychotherapists. It was a counselor or a psychologist. I wanted to be a psychologist. And that's when I made my mind up that that's what I wanted to do. And I think, reflecting back, it started way before that. When I was a child, I was bullied really badly, horribly, to the point where I didn't want to go to school. And sometimes I remember crying, telling my mom I didn't wish I was never born. And I remember one day I had a supply teacher. She was there for, our teacher had surgery or something. I was in grade 2, I was 7. So this teacher was there for a few months. And I used to make an excuse to stay after school and help the teacher clean the classroom or clean the blackboards back then. And again, back then, I didn't tell my parents. I just stayed at school after school at 7 years old. And my teacher said to me, one day she said, Christine, why do you stay here every day? I think she was probably trying to figure out why I didn't want to be home. And I said to her, I started to cry, and I said, because the kids are really mean to me, and so I wait until they're gone on their buses, so they're gone home, and then I go home. And she gave me a hug and a kiss on the top of my head, which I know teachers wouldn't be able to do today. And she said, you are such a special little girl. Don't ever let anyone take that away. You shine. Don't let them take away your shine. And, I think that the difference that she made in my life with that one comment might have led to some of this too, the difference that I can make in a kid's life. And then I actually, as an adult, started working for that same school board. And in my 30s, I met that teacher. She was walking out of a classroom in one of the schools that I was in. And I was like, oh, that's her. And I said to her, I don't know if you remember me. And she said, I do remember you. And then I told her what she said to me and how it made a difference. And she started to cry. And then I started to cry. And, I know that made her day. And she told me, telling her that. But 20 some years later, that still resonated with me. And so I think that kind of led to me being, wanting to help kids as well. Also, in my life, I was always that friend who people came to talk to. I never had any judgment. I've often been told that, you're so genuine. You don't judge people. You don't care what walk of life they come from. You don't, and why would I? You just listen and you don't tell people what to do. And that was my role. That was the friend role. And even, when I think about my whole life and going places, even today, there's no place that I go to that people don't just start talking to me and open up to me. And I remember my sister had to go have an MRI once, and I drove her and I was waiting. And in the 40 minutes she was in there, this woman sat beside me. And in those 40 minutes, all of a sudden, I just said hello to her. And I knew every detail about her life. And I think I was therapizing her. No, therapizing is not a word, but it's mine. And I was like, and that was before I became a psychotherapist. That was when I was still in the process. And so that, I think all of that paired with my journey, which is what I'm going to talk about next a little bit, but I have been through a lot and I've experienced trauma in my life, and I think that that is why I'm a trauma specialist as a psychotherapist. But I've been through a lot in my life, and I think that, abusive relationships and a partner with mental illness and addictions, and how that impacted myself and my son, and the bullying and loss, big loss in my life. And I think that that also it helps me relate to my clients. I get it. I don't ever get exactly what they're going through because nobody can. It's a unique experience. But I think that, some of the things I've been through have helped solidify, because I didn't actually, as I said, become a registered psychotherapist until I was in my mid-40s. All the stuff I've been through solidified that I wanted to be a psychotherapist. And so, part of that journey, because that's the next thing I'm going to discuss, is my journey. When I was 12 and I decided I was going to be a psychotherapist, as I progressed through high school and everything, I did have that boyfriend that one I just spoke about, who didn't want me to go too far. And when you're a teenager and you don't want to be away from your boyfriend. So I went to college for a couple of years and graduated in social service work, and then I was like, no, I want to be a child psychologist. I want to go to university. And that was my plan. And when I was 20, then I found out I was pregnant with my son. And my path changed a little bit. And that's okay, because having him was the best thing in my life. And I would never change any of that. And, my life took a little detour. And actually my son a couple years ago said, he's all grown up now, but he said, in relation to something he was going through, he said, Mom, I don't talk about, 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. He said, I kind of look at it like you take a step to the side and then you keep on going when you're ready. You take that pause, you take a step to the side. You're not going backwards. You're just waiting. And when I think about it, that was pretty much my journey. He's a smart boy. And when I was 20 and found out I was pregnant, I ended up raising my son by myself. I have a very supportive family, don't get me wrong. It wasn't totally by myself. They helped. But I raised him, his whole life as a solo parent, and that's okay. But in that, I had to make some different decisions and put some things on pause. I took a step to the side. And then when he was 12, and involved in every sport imaginable, so it was busy, my mom got sick. She was diagnosed with ALS, and which, as most know, is a horrific disease. And my mom was a force. She was go, go, go. She would golf and curl, and my dad used to say to have roller skates on to keep up with her, and she was full of life. And then all of a sudden all of our lives changed, but her life completely changed, and she was bedridden. She was trapped in her body and she couldn't move anything. And I looked at her and I thought, okay, I am now 31 years old, 32 years old. I had this dream since I was 12. I need to fulfill it. And so I started to apply to universities to get my BA in psychology. And my mom was very proud of that. She was very excited. So she did know my life plan at that time. And my mom died when I was 34. And she actually died on the very day I was to start my BA. I think that, what really sits with me too is that she knew. She knew what I was going to do, and I had to write down what degree I was getting so that she could tell everyone. And that's why part of my logo, my mom's symbol was a ladybug. And part of my logo is a ladybug because she helped get me to where I was. And the other part is a heart, a hand holding a heart, which is my parents. I carry them in my heart. So that was when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I got my BA. And then a few years later, I was in education. Education was taking a turn that was not fun. And I was like, I need to complete this goal. And so I think I was about 43 and I applied to do my master's and I got accepted. And then that was the next journey. And at that point, my son was in his early 20s, so I had more time to do it. And I did it. And I graduated in December 2016. Now, keep in mind, I'd already been doing the counseling and the behavior and the mental health stuff for quite some time, since I was like 22, 23. I graduated December 2016, and I started my business January 2017. And see, don't know the art of half-assing it. It was go time, and I kept my full-time job while I built it. But I think that, I don't need to go into all the nitty-gritties of starting the business, but it did build very quickly, and I now have 7 psychotherapists, 6 psychotherapists, and an occupational therapist who does practice psychotherapy, and I have a client care coordinator and social media and marketing administrator and an evening staff. So from 2017, starting off just me, because I was like, I'm just going to do my thing. Now look at us, right? It's been a journey and it's been fun. I think that, part of my journey to where I am right now, again, I'm a firm believer that, I've been through a lot in my life, and I've had loss, and I've had abusive situations, and I've had all of that. As much as, yes, I would want the people that I've lost back in my life, obviously, who wants to be in abusive situations, but all of that made me who I am today. And I don't think because of that I would change a lot of it. It made me the psychotherapist that I am today. It made me the person. It gave me the viewpoints. It gave me the compassion and the understanding. It gave me the non-judgmental view that I have. As much as it sucked at the time, I am who I am. And as my father always said to me, you are who you are and don't ever apologize for it. So I'm not going to. And he also said, or my mom also always said, and don't ever dumb yourself down or become someone you're not to build somebody else up. That's who I am, and that's why I became a psychotherapist. I want to help. I want to change people's lives. I started out with kids because of what I told you before with the bullying and everything. I started out with kids. And then after I got a few therapists here, I was like, I'm getting too old. I don't have the energy. So now I see mainly adults, and I work a lot of trauma. But I do everything. I don't do couples. Not my shtick. Nope. Tried that. Not going to try it again. I have people that do that here. I'm glad I made that decision when I was 12 years old, because I actually am happy to come to work every day, even though what I do is really heavy. When I see somebody smile that they just did something, they achieved something, when I see somebody empowered, every hard day is like, that was so worth it. So that's why I became a psychotherapist. And that's my journey. All of it out there. Vulnerable. So at the end of every podcast, no matter what we're talking about, I'm going to have some questions that viewers, clients, public have asked us, and I'm going to try to answer them to the best of my ability. And so the first question that we were asked is, how can I manage anxiety in my daily life? Before I go right into how to manage it, I want everyone to understand that we all have anxiety. Anxiety is a normal thing. I talk to clients about normal and appropriate and disordered. Normal and appropriate is that anxiety that we have before a presentation, before something big. If you have to go talk to someone about something that's really tough, that I call it the anxious pit in your stomach, the butterflies. That's normal, that's appropriate. Disordered anxiety is diagnosable, And it is when our life is impacted. So whether it's occupational, social, personal, when it impacts that to a point where we can't participate, we can't move forward, that sort of thing. How to manage your anxiety daily. The first thing is that I think is self-care, setting limits, setting boundaries. I'm not just talking about getting your nails done, getting your hair done, having a bath. I'm talking about eating healthy, moving, setting the boundaries, setting the limits. Limit the negative self-talk, that self-criticism. We're all doing the best we can. Mindfulness is huge. Being present. If you keep going the what ifs, bring it back. What ifs in the future? We have no proof that that's going to happen. That is an anxious thought. The why did I? That's in the past. We can't change it. We can apologize. We can learn from it. You can't change it. Be kind to yourself. Pull out the facts of situations. When anxiety comes up and the what ifs happen, because what ifs and anxiety go hand in hand, but pull out the facts. What do I know to be true right now? What can I control right now? Slow it down. Be mindful. What is happening in this moment? Use your 5 senses to bring you to the moment. Practice your breathing. I do 3 deep breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth after every client. So throughout your day, practice your deep breathing. And muscle relaxation. So for me, after each client, I also tense my whole body up and then I slowly release it so that I know that I am relaxing my muscles continuously throughout my day. And so when I get home, my shoulders aren't up here. Get out in nature. Socialize. Even those who don't like to socialize, even if you're at the grocery store and you say hello to somebody, you make eye contact with that person, you smile, they smile, oxytocin is released and that helps moderate your mood. Okay. Of course, there are many more things that help with anxiety, but we will address those in future podcasts. What should I do if I feel overwhelmed and burned out? Well, first thing you should do is set your boundaries and limits. Yes, I do like boundaries and limits, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. Because if you are feeling burnt out, then you're not setting boundaries and limits. Learn to say no. If someone doesn't like that you said no, that's on them, not on you. Work within the parameters of your work day, if possible. Obviously, like myself, when you own a business, you're never really off, right? But I do set boundaries. I do have family time. I do spend time with my family and my friends. And that's a no work time, unless it's an emergency. Convey that to other people. No, this is my time. If you're feeling overwhelmed with things, slow things down. Don't take on as much. Some people, like I say that I haven't mastered the art of half-assing it. No, I'm a go big or go home kind of gal. However, I also know to take care of myself. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I know the feeling that I get in my body and I slow it all down. I take some time to myself. Take breaks. Engage in activities that bring joy. If you engage in activities that are fun and that you enjoy, it is also going to release, increase serotonin and dopamine in your body and your brain. Serotonin actually comes from the stomach originally. It will increase that. How do I improve my self-esteem and my confidence? I mean, all of these questions are big ones. This one is a big one because increasing your self-esteem and your self-confidence is something very personal because it's our self-view, which is often developed by our core belief, which is the messages we received. So it's kind of a complex thing, but it's also simple, right? In the sense that be kind to yourself. Understand that you're doing the best that you can in any given moment. We make decisions based on what we know to be true in that moment. So if you are making a decision based on the information that you have and how you're feeling, what you know to be true, don't beat yourself up later because now you know the outcome. Limit that negative self-talk. Participate in some activities that you know you do well at, because that's going to build your self-esteem and your self-confidence. If we're always participating in activities that we struggle with, then we're always going to be judging ourselves and putting ourselves down. Also, this is huge, set realistic expectations. How many times do we set expectations for ourselves that we know we cannot meet? But I should be able to. Why? Why should you be able to? Set expectations that we know you can meet. You know you can meet. One thing I say to clients when they say something, I'll just use the gym as an example because that's always a big one. I need to start working out more. Okay. What goal? What goal do you want? Well, I need to do at least 5 days a week. What do you know you can do? 1 day a week? Do you know for sure you'll attend 1 day a week? Well, yeah. Okay, that's your goal. 1 day a week. If you do more than 1 day, bonus, right? And dopamine's released because you achieve something, you have that purpose, and you feel good about yourself. The way our brains work is if we say I'm going to work out 5 days a week and I work out 1, I'm a failure. If I'm going to say I work out 1 day a week and I work out 1, I'm a success. You worked out 1 day a week both those times. So set expectations that you know you're going to achieve. If you go higher than that, that's a bonus. Change that narrative. Also change the narrative in our lives, and that takes therapy. So because that means we have to change the narrative of our core belief. If your core belief is that you aren't good enough, that's going to affect your self-esteem and your confidence. And so we need to work on that and look at some strengths. Pull out your strengths. You can do that without therapy. And really look at, if you can't see your own strengths, what do people say? Right? What do people say to you? Oh, you're really kind. Okay, that's a strength. Wow, you have a great smile. Okay, that's a strength because that had an impact on somebody. That kind of thing. That's the last question, and we're going to wrap things up today. Next week, I'm going to have Jade on with me. Jade is one of my psychotherapists here. She started in May of 2000, right in the middle of COVID. So I didn't even see her in person for the first 2 months. And so she's been with me for 5 years, and we are going to talk about child anxiety and all things child anxiety. Jade specializes in children. So she's going to come on here with me. We look forward to embarking on some more topics and having you join us on this journey. Thank you for listening. I got kind of deep there with some of my own stuff, which I don't usually do. So there you go. I just put myself out there too. As always, take care of you.